You're now tuned in to The Twisted Truth with Corey Wesley, where everyday conversations take an unexpected turn. Entrepreneur, artist, author, and truth seeker, Corey Wesley is here to challenge the way we think, question the norms, and bring fresh perspectives to life, business, and beyond. With unfiltered discussions, special guests, and real talk, get ready for a show that's bold, insightful, and always a little twisted. Buckle up, because the truth isn't always what it seems. And now, here's your host, Corey Wesley. Well, thank you for joining me for another episode of The Twisted Truth with me, Corey, your host. Well, you see someone next to me. His name is John. He is a director of the Steinhardt School of Education. And I thought, because I have a lot of people asking me or talking about going back to school, and I have an expert to talk about the twisted truth of applying to grad school. So thank you for joining me, John.
Welcome. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad that you're here. So, I mean, a lot of people are thinking about going back to school. It's a difficult process. In reality versus the myth of grad school admissions, many people believe that grad school is only for recent undergrads, right? Is that true?
So, as Corey mentioned, I've been in graduate admissions for a very long time in the realm of graduate and professional school. I've worked in a law school. I've worked in two professional schools here in New York City, the large major research institutions. And, it depends on the program. Some programs are looking for specific backgrounds when folks are applying to grad school. And you can apply to most programs directly from undergraduate. Other programs will want to see some professional experience or some connection to the field that you're applying to. For example, one of our programs wants to see that maybe you've done some volunteer work or some internship work that's relevant to the graduate program you're applying to. So it really depends on what program you're applying to and what they value.
So sorry to interrupt you, but it should be relevant to whatever you're pursuing or you're...
Ideally, it's relevant, yes, because if you think about what graduate school is really getting deeper into the field that you might have studied in undergraduate, or sometimes you're looking to pursue a professional path that might be different than your undergraduate. There are a lot of professions like teaching or being a dietitian or working in occupational therapy that require you to be a licensed or credentialed professional. So a master's program may help you to provide that experience, the academic experience for getting that eventual certification or licensure that you need for that particular profession.
I mean, yes, that's ideal. But I mean, let's say somebody was working in the entertainment industry and now they want to be a teacher, but they have experience that's not going to, and they volunteered maybe at a youth center doing something else, but is that going to count?
So yes, all experience is going to count in some way, shape, or form. But what will happen during the application process is that individual who may not have direct connection to the field that they're applying to should make a case for themselves. Maybe they are doing volunteer work with youth. In this particular example, someone who wants to be a teacher, maybe they do have some connection to youth. Maybe they were doing summer camp work. Maybe they're doing volunteer. Maybe they're doing tutoring of young people. So in their statement of purpose, in their interview process, if the program requires an interview, they need to make a case for themselves. So why are they motivated to pursue teaching? What connection do they have? What are some of their hopes that they're one of their goals when they graduate from the program? What do they want to be doing in their career profession?
Now, I know there are a lot of big misconceptions about people when they are applying to graduate school. What is one of the biggest misconceptions about applying to grad school?
I think one of the big ones is that it's hard to get into. There are some very competitive programs out there, including my school. For example, one of the PhD programs, we get over 900 applications.
Wow.
And we're only looking for 2 people.
What?
And we're only going to admit 2 people.
Out of 900?
900 applications. So it is, some programs are very competitive, but other programs, we don't have a specific capacity. So we will admit, those people who we feel are qualified and who will succeed in the program. So it varies by program, but a common misconception is that it's hard to get into grad school.
No, it brings me up to my next question. That's a great way to pivot to it.
Is it true that only students with perfect GPAs and test scores get into these programs? Obviously, no.
No. So oftentimes what you'll hear in the admissions world is a holistic application review process.
What's that mean?
Most schools are doing what's called a holistic review. So they're taking all the requirements that an applicant is submitting and reviewing them in a whole picture kind of perspective. So that means that test scores alone or GPA alone is not going to cut somebody out of consideration. Certainly there are ways in which committees will filter or bucket applications to review. For example, in my example here, 900 applications, we're looking for 2 people. So how are we going to determine who's going to get those final spots? GPA is definitely important because you want to show that you're going to be successful in graduate school and you can handle the academic rigor of a graduate program. But also letters of recommendation should be echoing other parts of your application. For example, maybe you did an internship with the person who's writing the letter. So in your statement of purpose, you want to write about how your internship or your professional experience relates to the graduate program and try to hint at what a recommender might say, even though you may not know exactly what's in their letter.
You said the letter of purpose, right? Is that
letter? Well, there's a statement of purpose.
A statement of purpose,
which is kind of like a personal statement.
Okay, and what makes a good letter? I mean, a purpose
Statement of purpose.
Statement of purpose. What makes that?
There's different things that might come up in an application process. It's a personal statement, a statement of purpose. There might be specific topical essays. In the statement of purpose, you want to write about your particular interest in that graduate program. Maybe you're applying to 4 graduate programs and they each have a little bit of difference in what they're preparing students to do. You want to be sure your statement of purpose connects you to that particular program. And you want to be sure that you are tying all the parts of your application together. Again, so maybe you have some professional experience or an internship or volunteer work. So how is that helping you prepare for this graduate school process? And you want to basically make a case for you. What's making you stand out among those other 900 applicants?
Right.
So the stronger statement of purpose is really going to tell a story about who you are, why you're prepared for graduate school, what's motivating you, and what you hope to accomplish in the next 3 to 5 to 7 years, depending on how long the program is or how long your professional career pathway is going to take you.
So you are saying, though, that the GPA does matter.
GPA is important.
Okay, scores do matter.
Scores do matter.
Okay, so what do you actually look for in a strong application, and what separates a good candidate from a great one?
So I think, again, the storytelling in the application process, and, some of our programs require topical essays. So we ask applicants to write about a particular theme or a particular topic in their relevant industry. So we want to know what you know about the field. We want to see that applicants are following instructions. Those that don't follow instructions or are very generic in their statement of purpose are not going to stand out.
Now, I know that
Chat GPT. So some school, you have to check with your schools that you're applying to, but some schools may have very specific policies about the use of AI in the admissions process.
Okay.
It's a very commonplace. We understand this. And it will show in the process that, depending on, I don't want to go too far into this, sometimes those statements are very bland, very generic. They're not telling a story of who the individual is and why they're prepared, where they're coming from, and it's not tying other parts of the I keep talking about tying the application together, and that's really what your statement of purpose is for. It's to bring to light all of the components of who you are as an applicant to the admissions committee and to make a case for yourself. So AI doesn't always do that.
Okay.
In a very good way.
All right. So we are saying maybe use it to maybe just edit for grammar and stuff like that, but don't really rely on it.
Yeah, I don't have a specific recommendation other than it can be told. But some schools, some schools, depending on your school that you're applying to, may have very specific policies on the use of it.
Okay.
They may ban it and say, you're signing here that you wrote this yourself. So make sure you're understanding what your school is requiring.
So does work experience matter more than an academic performance in some of these programs?
It will vary. My school in particular has professional programs. It has academic programs. It has a variety of programs. So it will depend on the program that someone is applying to. Those programs that are preparing you for licensure may want to see some experience and, some preparation that you've done in advance. There's academic prerequisites sometimes. If you want to be an occupational therapist, for example, we do require that you have certain courses in certain areas before you can pursue our master's program. So in anatomy, in chemistry, in different science and social science areas. So check with your programs to see what they require.
So your undergrad classes may not even matter.
Right. So, even thinking further, but thinking even more advanced, someone who's thinking about undergraduate study, if they're thinking of being a physical therapist, for example, there's going to be specific prerequisites that you have to meet in order to be a physical therapist in a graduate program. So taking those courses while you're an undergrad will prepare you for that. So they can undergrads can plan ahead for what they've got to do. But going back to your question about work experience, not only does it prepare you for graduate school a little bit more, I think, than coming directly from undergrad, but it makes you more marketable when you graduate. So there's that sort of value added that comes with having the work experience before being in graduate school. I think the experience that you have before, during graduate school is going to propel you into where you want to be.
Got it. And then, a lot of people who attend grad school may not go directly right after, undergrad, and they're adults. And a lot of people are fearful going back to school. What should an adult going back to school after a certain period of time from undergrad, what should they keep in mind when kind of going back to school or preparing? What are some things?
Time management, I think. If they're going to school part-time particularly, that usually means 2 courses a semester. And, our courses in my graduate school typically meet for an hour and 40 minutes once a week. But again, check with your program to see what it requires, because some are more intense, some are full-time only, some are part-time or full-time. So it will vary depending on what programs you're applying to. But if a student is doing part-time program in a school like mine, they can they'll have to schedule 2 days a week, hour and 40 minutes for class time. Then there's outside class time that you're studying, doing your papers, doing your projects. You may be having to get together with classmates to do a group project. So there's lots of time involved. So time management is going to become important, and balancing work as well as school, as well as any personal stuff going on in your life. So I think that's the big thing that people have to think about.
Good, thank you. And then, that adds another layer of questions in the sense of how long do previously earned college credits last? I mean, when I graduated 10 years ago, do those credits still apply?
Well, when you're talking about applying credits, it's, there's a couple of things that come to mind for me. One is the degree itself. So if you've gotten your undergraduate degree 10 years ago, that doesn't really matter so much. But if you've maybe you started graduate school 10 years ago and now you're looking to go back to graduate school, this comes up oftentimes. Usually in a school like mine, the courses in another graduate program can be counted up to 10 years from when they were completed. After 10 years, they either, one, don't count, or they have to be recertified as still applicable to a graduate program.
But let's say that...
But again, that varies by institution, so you got to check with the institution.
And if the institution allows maybe your work experience, maybe somebody started a business on their own, does that count?
There is what's called, I forget the name of it, but there are some programs out there which will allow competency-based credit. So some schools will allow you to receive credit for professional work that you've done outside of the classroom, but it's called competency-based credit. So look into that if that's something that you're thinking about. Oftentimes that's usually undergraduate credit, not necessarily graduate credit. But I'll also mention there's also online programs out there. And some folks find that doing an online program is more suited to them.
Now, that brings me a question, because a lot of people that I know that might be considering go back to school are very hesitant about the online kind of schooling. Does that hold weight like a standard university or college?
Do your research. Many online programs are very strong. We have 6 online programs in my particular school. What you want to be sure that you're checking is that, one, they're accredited by a regional organization or the professional association. If you're looking for licensure, that they're accredited by the professional agency or accrediting body that credits those particular programs. So that's one of the first major things you want to check out. The other is that you may have to do an in-person option. because there's different types of online programs. Some are what's called asynchronous, which means you never have to sit in a live classroom. You're doing your coursework usually on your own pace or on a particular timeline. And then there's what's called synchronous study, which means you're actually in a classroom, a virtual classroom, once a week for each class that you're in, and you're interacting with classmates. So our programs are what's called synchronous.
You know your stuff. That's why I have them here to help you guys.
So there's different types of online study, and some will require you to be in person at some point during your studies. And those are what we call immersions. So most of our students are coming to campus once or twice during their studies to interact, do particular clinical placements and clinical work.
So this leads me into the financial side of grad school and funding options that applicants often overlook.
Again, this goes back to checking with your school that you're applying to, because everyone is going to be a little different. At a school like mine, we require what's called the free application for federal student aid. There's lots of unknowns right now with the Department of Education, so it's a really topsy-turvy time right now, but we require the FAFSA, it's called. Students who submit the FAFSA can be considered for school-based scholarships. Some schools will have very specific processes for financial aid, and the most important thing you can do is apply on time. And also, you most often do not have to wait to be admitted.
No.
You don't. You can apply for scholarships,
But what if you're not admitted?
sometimes the decisions are made separately. Sometimes they're made jointly. It all depends on the institution.
And who's making that final decision? Is it a particular school, or is it a financial group within the
It all
organization?
varies. It all varies. Sometimes it's folks in the admissions office. Sometimes it's the faculty in a department. Sometimes it's a separate financial aid office. So it all depends on how the school is structured and what those processes look like.
And now I know there's a misconception about going into debt if you go to grad school. Is that true? I mean, obviously, your school is one of the expensive.
Graduate school is an investment. And the reality is most graduate students are taking out some level of student loans. But there are scholarship opportunities out there. Just do your due diligence and submit those particular applications and make sure you're applying on time.
So you work at NYU, and that's a prestigious name. Does it really matter in the long run whether you go to an Ivy League, top 10, or you go to your regular local college to get your degree, your master's?
So the prestige of an institution at the graduate level, I think in competitive areas such as law or business, it may make some difference. But I think what's more important is to really look at the long-term investment you're making by attending one school over another. What sort of resources does that institution have? What sort of connections can you make while you're there? And what is the drive of the individual? So how are you working to make those connections? Not only networking, but the connections between your academic life and your work life and your professional career opportunities. So I think to the extent that someone utilizes and really puts forth some of that entrepreneurial spirit of activating all of those connections will have a long-term impact.
And how should students weigh the cost versus the reputation? I think you kind of touched upon it, but how should they really kind of make a decision? The cost or the reputation of the school? Which one is better?
Well, it's all going to come down to a matter of individual circumstances and how things are working out for the individual. You, as the graduate school applicant, need to make a decision for yourself and weigh the pros and cons. Put together a spreadsheet of what's working, what are the pros, what are the cons, and really make that decision. Everyone's situation is so different, but it really also comes down to doing your due diligence when you're admitted to a grad school. What are the alumni doing? What are the current students doing? How connected are they in terms of student groups? What are the faculty doing? How open and available are the faculty at that particular institution? And how am I going to make those connections when I'm in graduate school? And where do I feel that I fit in the best? What research are those faculty doing?
Important, or does it help or hinder someone to talk to alumni?
Yes, I think it helps.
And then since you are director of grad admissions, what is the biggest mistake you see applicants make? And I know you go through this. He's my ride or die, y'all. So I kind of know what is one of the biggest mistakes.
Not following instructions.
So when you say that, what does that mean? Like,
missing a deadline, for example. Missing a deadline. Not
Yes.
checking not getting their transcripts in on time. Not following the instructions on how to submit the transcript. So things like that. Just not following instructions can lead to pitfalls.
Is there a difference from an international student versus a
A
local?
little bit, yeah. International students do have to, well, I won't say international students, but anyone in my particular school, anyone with non-U.S. or Canadian credentials has to submit an evaluation of their credentials prior to their application being complete. So there are a few more steps that those with non-U.S. credentials have to do, yeah.
So is there a central place for prospective students? I guess you can only speak for NYU, but is there a database with up-to-date information about grad school applications that someone can look for, or that they go to each individual school?
It's really best to go to each individual school. Start on developing a list of where you want to apply, what sort of, and if you're not sure, start identifying people who are in a position where you see yourself. Maybe you're looking at schools of social work or mental health counseling. Look to see who's in those positions, see where they've gotten their degree. Just do Google searches. Google is, everybody's friend. And then start to develop a list. But it's important to go to each school that you're interested in applying to and follow the instructions.
And I have one last question before we wrap up. I hope everyone's getting a lot of information, those that are preparing for grad school, interested in going back. If you apply and you get denied entry for that year, is it best to go to another school and transfer if you have a dream school, or is that kind of just absurd to just keep trying to go to your dream school? Because grad school is what, 2 years, 3 years of an
Yeah, grad school is usually 1 to 3 years. Doctoral study is 5 to 7.
So if you get denied, should you just give up, or should you try again?
That's a tough question because some schools might give you feedback on your application.
Okay.
My school does not provide individualized feedback.
Okay.
We just don't have the capacity to do that. Sometimes years ago when we did give some feedback, times folks thought that if they checked those boxes, they'd get in, and that's not the case. Again, out of a pool of 900 applications, we're selecting
Only
two.
two.
If you're applying to that same program,
I'd be discouraged.
it would be frustrating.
Just a side note, how many applications do you see in your office a day?
Well, usually in my school, we get upwards of 7,000 applications for all of our master's programs.
Oh, wow.
But we have 11 departments and about 70 programs.
Okay, and how many are being admitted to each?
So it varies depending on the program. Like I said, some programs are very competitive and can only take so many students. Other programs are a little more open, so they're more flexible with how many students they can take.
So, obviously they can't call you directly, but if there's a interest of NYU grad school, where should they go? Obviously to the website, but how do they start the ball rolling?
First, they identify the program they're interested in. So if someone is interested in sociology, for example, just look up NYU Sociology and you'll probably find the program, the department page. And then there's also the Graduate Enrollment Services Office that can help answer questions. So I think just Googling and finding the admissions office is very helpful. Oftentimes, that's why we're here. Admissions offices are here to help folks navigate the process. We're here to answer those questions.
Also with financial aid?
Yeah, and financial aid too, yeah. And we're here to help you get connected to the other places that you need to connect to. Sometimes a place like NYU is very big, so some people do certain things, other people do other things. When it comes to large universities, oftentimes the academic department will answer questions about the curriculum or field work or internships and things like that. So it's sometimes helpful to connect with a program director or an academic advisor in the department.
Well, everyone, thank you, John, I had to force him to do this.
No, you did.
No, but he did very well. We can applaud him. I know he's nervous, but I want to say thank you. I think this is really the intention was, I know a lot of people are intimidated that my platform is about the twisted truth and how we set ourselves up for failure and not venture out and try new things. And I know going to back to school can be very scary. Even my idea of going back to school, I can't even think about it, but it's just that sometimes you don't have the resource to talk to someone. And so I wanted to give this to my audience who were just interested, and I saw I was going through YouTube and stuff, and I didn't see anything out there that would be helpful. And you work at NYU, you're a director, you have the understanding. How long have you been at NYU?
A long time.
how many years? He's been there 30 years, so that even gives him more credibility. That's why I asked. As I close out my thing is to stay blessed, because you are already blessed. And remember to believe in yourself, love yourself, and trust yourself. That's how you'll get into grad school. Well, again, have a great day. Remember to like, subscribe, and share, and tell everyone about Corey Wesley, the Twisted Truth. Have a good day, everyone. Bye. Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
That's a wrap for this episode of The Twisted Truth with Corey Wesley. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the show with someone who needs a fresh perspective. Remember to stay curious, stay bold, and always remember this: the truth isn't always what it seems. Until next time, keep thinking, keep questioning, and keep twisting the truth. See you soon.